Hello, I am out here in very sunny California, and please don't mind me squinting a little bit as I'm trying to record this video in my parents' backyard. And I wanted to discuss a little bit the concept of fear and fortitude and how they're understood in the Nicomachean ethics. Now, one thing you should keep in mind, and I believe I've said this before, is that the Nicomachean ethics is really a masterwork in human psychology. Aristotle really gets to a universal notion, and that is his goal. He thinks you don't really have knowledge until you understand the universal. You have a universal notion of how the human mind tends to work, that given the right circumstances, or at least similar circumstances, human beings will tend to operate in similar ways, depending on, particular personalities and things like that. And important to understand all of this is fear and fortitude. Now, when you begin to actually think about fear and to analyze fear, you realize that fear gives us unique insights into the human experience. Because in part, fear can reveal us to other people. Right? Other people can really begin to figure us out in terrifying ways at times, right? We don't really want to be known. We want to hide all kinds of parts of ourselves. Right? We don't want people to see us. We don't want people to know our fears and things like that. But the problem is, we can't help but give ourselves away. So an important part of understanding all of this is this idea of mockery and making fun. So I'll give you a really good example. The kind of people who tend to make fun of other people are also the kind of people who are deathly afraid of being made fun of. And the more someone tends to mock other people and belittle other people, the more that person tends to crave being accepted by other people. So what we're afraid of drives us in so many ways, because there's this role of pleasure and pain, right? The human pursuits and our actions really are pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain, and fear is the expectation of a kind of pain. That's what we mean by fear. So when we talk about fear, in part, fear reveals us to other people, but fear also gives us unique insights into ourselves. So I would argue you really don't know who you are until you begin to see what you're afraid of. And you don't really begin to see what you're afraid of until you're in the middle of being afraid of it, right? It often takes it takes fear overcoming you in order for you to realize about yourself the kinds of things that you're afraid of. It's very easy to say, when nothing is at stake, that you would act a certain way given certain circumstances, that you would be tough in certain situations. But once the stakes are real, the fear tends to become real as well. And so fear, in many respects, reveals us to ourselves. It makes us known to ourselves based on what we fear, what we're afraid of. But in relation to fear, then, is this idea of fortitude. So I shouldn't say the entire. The goal in the human endeavor is to be someone who, through wisdom and prudence, can stand up to life itself. To have a kind of courage or a bravery that can endure life. And you won't know how well you stand up to life until life stands up to you. You won't know what you need in life to do well until you actually experience firsthand, at the particular level, the things that you're afraid of. So fortitude is going to be an important part in how do we actually stand up to things that we're afraid of, because we will experience things that we fear. But now you have to ask the question, well, how do you stand up to the things that you fear? Do you just endure it? And if you do endure it, how do you endure it without, running away in whatever shape or form that takes? So I think Aquinas really is helpful in fleshing out what it means to have fortitude and how a person should have fortitude. So Aquinas has an idea of fear that is really rooted in Aristotle, but Aquinas begins to take it a step further. And Aquinas argues that fear and love go hand in hand. That you don't have fears until you first love something. And obviously we want to be the kind of people who love things. So you should have just gone over dealing with this idea of indifference. Indifference is really a kind of retracting or refusing to give assent to things that we love. Refusing love. And it's mostly out of guarding ourselves. Because when you love things, then you're open to being hurt by the things that you love. And so, on one hand, we want to be people who don't have fear. But on the other hand, there are wrong ways to go about not having fear. For example, people who become severely dependent on drugs often begin by they're afraid of something and they don't want to feel the fear anymore. Indifference is another part of that. The kind of people who are indifferent are also the kind of people who don't love anything. So love and fortitude and fear all are interrelated and intermingled. And Aquinas argues that fortitude and love are going to be really related because of we only fear things because we're afraid of losing them. Whether that's money, whether that's power, whether that's status, whether that's our own lives, right? There are things that we love that we do not want to lose. But likewise, the way to have fortitude is not to love less, it's to love more. Which seems counterintuitive at first. But if you love something more than the thing that will be lost, then you're willing to lose that thing. For example, if you love the good of others, you're willing to sacrifice your own life for the good of others because you love them more than you love your own life. See, the way to be someone who has courage and bravery, which is one of the last things we went over before I left and came out here, the idea of having courage and bravery is rooted in loving more. Likewise, fortitude, to be able to have the endurance to stand up to fear, is not rooted in a lack of love, and it's not rooted in indifference. It's rooted in loving more and loving deeply and loving things in the right order. And so both Aristotle and Aquinas are going to argue that the way you love things in the right order is through a proper use of reason and wisdom and prudence. So reason puts things in the right order. And we love things in this kind of hierarchy of value so that we can act in ways that are brave, even when circumstances suggest or influence us to be fearful. So this has been a very, very brief note on the role of fear, fortitude, and love. I think that there are essential aspects of this that can shoot in other directions. But one thing you should know is that when you analyze fear, it really gives us insight into us, ourselves, our own behaviors, the decisions we make, whether we act in ways that are moral, in ways that are ethical, and that is to say, in ways that cause us to flourish. So that's been this from California. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. I'd be happy to answer them and to dialogue with you a little bit more. I'll talk to you later.